Sisters, Secrets and Sacrifice by Susan Ottaway. Read by Catherine Harvey. Prologue. At the end of August 2010, after several weeks of sunshine and fine weather, a strong wind began blowing in from the sea. The hitherto blue sky disappeared to be replaced by low cloud, and the Devon resort of Torquay was subjected to an unseasonable downpour, which continued for several days. High above the town's harbour in a small flat in Lisbon Crescent, an elegant Victorian Grade II listed building, lived an elderly lady, Eileen Nearne. Although 89 years old, Eileen was still quite sprightly, and, despite the steep slopes of Torquay's roads, could often be seen walking into town with her large shopping bags to fetch her groceries. Sometimes, when the weather was fine, she sat on a bench in the communal gardens in front of the flats, reading a newspaper and occasionally exchanging pleasantries with one or other of her neighbours. But the people who lived in the flats at Lisbon Crescent knew only two things about their neighbour. The first was that she spoke English with a foreign accent, and the second, that she loved cats. They knew about her fondness for cats because she had rescued and looked after a ginger stray. The little animal was the only thing she ever spoke about to her neighbours, and was the reason they called her, when she was out of earshot, Eileen the Cat Lady. Although as the rain fell, her immediate neighbours remarked to each other that they had not seen the cat lady for a few days, they were not unduly worried, reasoning that she was simply staying indoors to avoid the worst of the weather. But when the sun came out again, and Eileen had still not appeared, they began to grow concerned. She had always guarded her privacy closely, so they knew that if one of them were to knock on her door to check that she was all right, she would not answer. They were uncertain what to do. Most of the neighbours thought of Eileen as a rather sad old spinster who never had visitors and did not have any family or friends. But although during the many years that she had lived at Lisbon Crescent, no one had ever managed to get close to her or discover anything about her life, she was a harmless old soul, and no one liked to think that she might be ill or have had a fall. September came, and Eileen was still in hiding. It was obvious by now that something had happened to her, and having no contact details or name for anyone who might be interested, one of the neighbours called the police. When they arrived, they had to break into her small flat, and there, on her bedroom floor, they found her body. A doctor was summoned and declared that she had been dead for several days, perhaps even a week. He ordered a post-mortem, and the pathologist reported to the Torquay coroner that the death was due to natural causes. Eileen had died of a heart attack, brought about by heart disease and hardening of the arteries. An inquest was not necessary, so the local funeral home was contacted, and preparations were set in motion for a publicly funded funeral. The police, meanwhile, were sorting through the contents of Eileen's tiny flat in an effort to find some evidence of family or friends. It was a difficult task. The flat was very small and filled with furniture, far too much for a home of that size. There were also cupboards filled with beautiful but rather old-fashioned dresses, ornaments, books, religious pamphlets, letters and photos. The police did not have time to read more than a few of the letters, which seemed to be old, and found nothing to suggest that she was important to anyone. The neighbours, to whom they spoke, could only confirm that they were not aware of any family. Satisfied that they had done their best, and that there was nothing to give any clues about her next of kin, the police were on the point of giving up the search when they came across some French coins, old French newspaper cuttings, and medals. These included the British 1939 to 1945 Defence Medal and the War Medal 1939 to 1945, which were awarded to many people during the Second World War. The police took more notice when they came across the France and Germany Star, which was awarded only to those who had done one or more days' service in France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Nether.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?